means we need to access your brain, and that means we cut a nice round hole into your skull.
Why? It's not my first time hearing about this Neuralink, but it's my first time seeing the graphics. Like, this is crazy. I can't just cut somebody's brain open like that. I'm wondering, how close are we getting to the days of Noah? Let's get back to this video because this is crazy.
Too big, just about the size of a watch face, that's all. Now, this is the outer layer of your brain, the cerebral cortex. This is where all of your high-level calculations take place. Different segments of the cortex control different aspects of your mind and body. Towards the front is where your mood and emotions are processed. Towards the back is where all of your sensory inputs get received, like touch and vision. Right in the middle is the motor cortex. This is the sweet spot that Neuralink wants to access.
I love how he calls this the sweet spot. So that right there, that spot, right, is the motor cortex. This is the sweet spot where Neuralink likes to place their chip to be able to control things of the human mind and body.
Is responsible for turning thought into action. The idea here is that we can hardwire the motor cortex directly into a computer. Now you are controlling that computer entirely with your mind instead of a mouse and a keyboard. For a person who physically cannot move their hands, this is a life-changing enhancement. But even for a able-bodied person, you would unlock 1,000,000 times more bandwidth in the connection between your mind and the machine. Your thoughts instantly transformed into digital action.
They're talking about turning thoughts into action. I believe that's actually happening. I 100,000% believe this is true because I had an iMac once. There is an option you can choose. I think the camera has to be built in to where you can control the mouse with your eyeball. You just kind of move around. And the first time I did it, I was like, that's actually pretty cool. And then the more I thought about it, the less cool it became. And the more I was like, wait, what is going on? Like, how am I mean, it worked.
To
It worked
access those
for real.
thoughts, though, we need to insert a wire into your brain, and this is not just any wire. Neuralink engineers have developed an ultra-flexible metal thread that is thinner than a human hair, yet is also able to carry 16 separate electrode connections into the brain tissue. Each Neuralink N1 device has 64 threads that need to be inserted into the cortex, and the level of precision required is so high that no human surgeon could perform the operation. So instead, Neuralink uses a robot.
Yo, what? Okay, so not only they're about to put a chip inside you to control things in the world, it's being done by a robot, something with a chip. I'm losing it.
Remarkably
I'm
similar
losing it.
to a sewing machine. The robotic arm has a tiny needle on the end that will very quickly stab into the brain material, deposit the thread, and then retract. The R1 has an advanced targeting system that helps it to avoid hitting any veins or blood vessels within the brain. The needle and the thread is only piercing the surface level of gray matter. What we're targeting with those threads are very specific cells inside the brain matter called neurons. There are 86 billion neurons distributed
I don't believe that number just because nobody can count to 86 billion, so I'm not gonna.
your brain, and 16 billion of them are located in the outer cortex layer, and that makes them accessible to a Neuralink electrode. In the most basic sense, neurons are like little switches inside your brain, and they allow these electrochemical signals to travel all the way down from the cortex through the intersections of the brain and into the brain stem, where those signals get dispatched out through the nervous system to all the different parts of the body. So every action of the human body, from blinking your eyes to kicking a ball, begins with a particular sequence of neuron activation.
I did not choose this video for the soccer kicking, by the way. Just for anybody, just for the record.
By sticking our electrode thread right into the brain material where these neurons live, we can start to read the signals being broadcast by the neurons, kind of like eavesdropping on the brain's internal communications. Right now, we are only looking at them in a binary sense.
I don't know if you guys can hear that, but he said it's kind of like eavesdropping on the brain's communication with your body. So they're sticking these neurons or these little metal rods thinner than strand of hair, and this is intercepting the communication between your brain and where those messages are going. 30.
The neuron is either active or not active, 1 or 0. And in this way, we can start viewing brain activity the same as computer code. In the instant that you perform an action like clenching your fist, a group of neurons will switch from inactive to active, from 0 to 1. And as long as that pattern is repeated every time that you perform that action, then we can essentially decode the neural signal for clenching a fist. So that's great. But what do we do with it? Well, imagine you have a spinal cord injury just below your brainstem. Your neurons can still generate the signal for clenching a fist, but the physical connection to the arm has been broken, so the message isn't getting delivered. But if we can use the threads to read that signal directly from the cortex, then we can create an electronic bridge that bypasses the physical damage and delivers the message into the nervous system. Or, in an even more extreme example, you could send that neural signal out of the body and into something else, like a robotic arm, that would respond to brain activity in exactly the same way as your biological arm. This is all stuff that Elon Musk is talking about right now.
Okay, I did not get this deep into Neuralink, but the message from the brain going to the arm that might have lost connection due to a breakage in the spinal cord, you can either go around where the injury was, or you can put a prosthetic that you can just skip and send a message digitally that way and still control things. My conspiracy brain is just going crazy right now. Think about this for a second. To a piece of a hand that's artificial, some kind of robotic hand, but control it with your mind. Connect. If you can physically move any part of your body, the applications are crazy. I'm all without having to robot, without having to imagine, but just controlling the entire go inside the robot. This Avatar movie is exactly like that. They get into those avatars and they're connected, by a spinal cord or something, and then you can control this being. Is this the beginning of it? Are we watching the beginning? I'm tripping. You tripping? We tripping? Is everybody tripping? What's going on?
Only about the size of a quarter and the thickness of a wristwatch. Elon Musk often calls it a Fitbit in your skull, and he's pretty much bang on with that description. The electronics are encased in a soft, non-reactive silicone jacket, and the implant will sit on top of your brain inside the hole that was cut into the skull. It's thin enough that the skin can be folded back over the hole, and the device will be totally covered. No visible sign that you have a brain implant. Inside the N1 case is a small lithium-ion battery cell, a wireless charging coil, a Bluetooth radio transmitter, and a silicon microchip with a very tiny computer printed onto it. Basically, the same stuff you'd find inside a Fitbit. And just like a Fitbit will measure your heart rate and convert that data into computer code, the Neuralink is measuring your neuron activity and converting it into a digital signal. The digital representation of brain activity is then broadcast wirelessly through the Bluetooth signal into a separate processing device like a laptop. And that's where Neuralink can start to convert the binary code into usable data. The best example of this was back in 2020 when Neuralink showed us this demo with N1 implanted pigs. The purpose of the demonstration was to show neuron activity associated with the pig's snout. So every time the pig touched something with her nose, the resulting neural spike would be picked up by the N1 implant and broadcast wirelessly to a nearby computer, which would then convert that activity into both audio and visual representations, and this all happened instantly.
This is a high energy pig.
So every blip noise that you hear is a specific neuron firing inside the pig's brain, and the different tones signify different neurons activating as the pig snuffles around in the hay and eats food. The next step up from here is to have the computer convert those bleeps and blips into software commands. This is what we're seeing next with the Mind Pong monkey demonstration.
I see why people hate these test cases and using these monkeys this way.
The first thing they do is teach a Neuralink implanted monkey to play a simple video game using a joystick. So, as the monkey is manipulating the controller with his hand, the N1 is broadcasting all of the associated neural activity back to the processing computer. Once they have this data, Neuralink can use machine learning to identify the specific neuron firings that are associated with the physical movements of the joystick. Once they have this code figured out, Neuralink can bypass the joystick, taking neural signals from the N1 to the computer.
But let's be honest though, that monkey playing that video game was pretty cool. Enough of this video. You guys see the video. The Neuralink is happening. And the fact that it works is what's concerning. We don't have a lot of details on the days of Noah. We have details of what Noah was doing and what Noah was called to do, but what was going on around Noah was just described as pure evil, hate, and man only sought after evil. But that's in Genesis chapter 6. In Matthew 24, Jesus also compares the end times to the days of Noah. He's not just referring to Noah building an ark. He's not just referring to a flood. He's referring to what was happening during that time. And if we derive from the context of what was happening during that time, we can extrapolate things that will make our case. Essentially, the days of Noah most likely had this going on clearly. How else could you possibly infect all of humanity? How else could you possibly change the DNA of all of humanity except for one family? As I'm watching this Neuralink video, you guys saw the part where it's showing us how big the Neuralink is. And once it's installed, there are no visible signs that you have a Neuralink. It fits in perfect. They fold the skin over it perfectly. Has a battery in there. It doesn't need to be replaced for a while. It looks like there's charging coils or something. And it just fits. It just works. Why would you want it not to show that you have a Neuralink? Why would you want it just to fit in nice? Because this is not built just for people with brain injuries. This will be built commercially. This is built for you and me. This is the real target market. There are more of us than there is of people with brain injuries that prevents them from actively manipulating things in the world. The target market is always us. This is why there are no visible signs. When you install it, this is why it looks good. It fits, it's small battery, chic, stylish, and you can control things without having to move a muscle, literally. These things had to be happening in the days of Noah, because in Genesis chapter 6, Noah's busy, but the world is also doing things. Jesus says people were continuing on marrying and drinking, also giving up their humanity by giving themselves into something else, by transforming their humanness into genetic modification that has angelic DNA in it. And clearly this doesn't work out for mankind because it just turned them evil against each other. Which brings us to another topic. Why did they turn so evil? Why did they only know violence after that? I'm going to assume that they were all pretty powerful after the transformation. This is my own personal opinion that obviously if you're taking on the DNA of angelic beings, you're going to be some type of superhuman personality. And when you have that much power as a human, you exercise it. And this is probably why people got so evil and they couldn't stop being absolutely violent. God had to flood the earth for things like this. So Jesus said the end will be just like the days of Noah because of things like this. We are going to see humanity easily joining the digital world and giving up their humanity, voluntarily giving it up because it's going to be so enticing and it's going to have no visible signs, no scarring. So it's not something that we're going to be forced. People are going to volunteer for this. Be careful out there, friends.